So, when I first started talking to Aishwarya and Padmashri about this word conscious, so I started thinking about what is this thing. I wrote down a few things that, to me at least, they sort of seem somewhat related to the idea of conscious. So you need to be informed. You need to have some comprehension of what it is that you're being informed about. So just understand it. You have to have a degree of empathy towards other people that sort of then translates in some way to being conscious and purposeful. So, okay, with all this information, with all this awareness and understanding, what is the thing that you're trying to do? Or all of this somehow, in my mind, relates to this idea of conscious. I don't really know how. I'm sort of just thinking aloud as I sort of explore this. Then I put some of these maps together. I don't know if you can see the colors in any detail in this light, but generally think that red is bad and green is good. And or red, or not even bad and good. Let's say red is too few and green is many, kind of thing. One of this is a map of all the bus stops in the city. Another one is a map of all the lakes in the city. I mean, it's a grid counter. It's not an individual point. In every 1 by 1 kilometer grid, how many of these are there? That's what each map shows. One of this is bus stops, one of this is lakes, and the third one is schools. These are all things that people care about at some level. But I'm reasonably sure that most people can't tell which one is which. So when we talk about the city, there's a lot of conversation about what it is in a way that isn't really known well enough to even have the conversation about what it is. And that's the first point that I want to make. The next slide. Okay, this is it's an interesting thing. This is a metro map, and each box on each of the metro stations is a measurement. It's a measurement of how accessible that metro station is by 7 modes. And those 7 modes are walking, cycling, two-wheeler, auto rickshaw, taxi, four-wheeler, and bus. And this was done in about 6 hours by one person, just going from each metro station to the other and making some simple observations and putting this stuff together. I'm pretty sure Metro doesn't have this. The Bangalore Metro people have never done this kind of stuff. But the point that I'm trying to make is that even ordinary people doing small things can come to certain ideas of the city. Lal Bagh is the most inaccessible station, by the way. If any of you live around here, you might try to figure out how to change that. And at some level, the point I'm making with this slide is that the ability to know more about the city and thereafter to give yourself the opportunity to intervene is actually quite close at hand. And you can do citywide experiments like this, or next slide. Or you can do more local things. This is what we're doing on Sanjay Nagar Main Road. Some of you may be involved in this stuff. Essentially to say how many, within a given radius, a changeable radius on a map, can I count for each type of facility how many of these things are nearby. And then I can, as the next order, I can look at how affordable each of these things are to each segment of the population, who comes where. And can you build all of these things into script-driven things so that you can do these things not just for Bangalore, not just for Sanjay Nagar, but to be able to do these things in scale that give you an understanding of what the whole city is and what any city is. And then the last slide. So this is really the point. I think this particular map and grid doesn't have any colors on it. And the point that I'm trying to make is that really all of this is a blank slate. It's the questions you ask post-observations that really determine both how conscious we are and really why we're trying to be conscious in the first place. Like, do we want an efficient city? I put a blank up there that says, how blank is the city? And you can do this at the level of your neighborhood also to say, how blank is your neighborhood? And the blank can be anything. You could ask, how efficient is my city? How well do things function? How fair is my city? How vibrant is it? How humane is it? How welcoming is it? How competitive is it? And how sustainable it is. I'm just throwing out some words. These are all things that people put out there as goals for any good city. But to be able to be conscious of it in a measured way, in a way that's sort of allows you to intervene for that purpose in a deliberate way, I think that's important too. And that brings me to my final point, which is that in any city or neighborhood or any place, even in your community, there will be people who are doers. They're trying to do something. The guy who is building something, the Anup Naiks of the world, are actually causing the city. They're not just observing the city and responding to the city. Your local cooperator is causing the city. People who build, professor and his students are causing the city. They have an institutional space, they have a campus, they have a budget for doing things, and they have a normal mode of operation that causes things to happen. A very large number of other people are simply observing the city, responding to it, adjusting to it, and all of that thing. So there will always be this asymmetry between those who are causing the city and those who are not causing the city. And in such an environment, how do you begin to be not merely conscious, but respond to the conscious in a way that says that if you want the city to be a certain way, what is your strategy to cause it to be that way as well?